Hello, hello, and welcome back to another fantastic tier list Tuesday. And Twitch is telling me I am sufficiently up and running. So before I get started with yapping, I am going to do the thing I probably shouldn't and go run and do something real quick. I will be right back, like 10 seconds tops. Okay, I'm back. That was probably a bit longer than 10 seconds, but it is what it is, right? So, anyways, we're back at it again with another fantastic tier list Thursday. This one, as you may know if you saw the schedule, is going to be the ranking every Guilty Gear character rather than every Guilty Gear song. I wanted to take a break from doing the songs before I did the Korean OST, mainly because I haven't listened to the Korean OST a whole lot, so I want to listen to it a bit more, so I can kind of form a few more opinions and not be, like, super reactionary, I guess. I don't want to, like, just... I want to have my opinions be a little bit more... have some more time to sit, instead of just placing things places. I think it's stupid when people make wide sweeping statements on their first time hearing something or on their first time playing something, or you know. But that's neither here nor there today. We are doing characters, not music. Anything else before I get started? I don't really think so. I think, still gotta plug Instagram on Twitch, VOD's channel on Twitch, main channel on Twitch. This tier list we're doing today, probably going to be the first main channel video. More than likely. Playing SMT and doing the music tier list are also definitely going to be main channel videos, as well as a successful Emerald Nuzlocke whenever I actually beat one. But since we're just gonna bust out this whole tier list all one stream, it should be the first. Once I learn how to edit, the big things are coming. Big things are coming. So yeah. That's about it. I'll get on my tab here. Here we are. Here's the tier list. I'm gonna start recording and I'll do my YouTuber intro. And so here we go. Hello, and welcome to That One Pyro Noobs Guilty Gear Characters Tier List. I thought I'd do a Guilty Gear Characters Tier List because, well, I like Guilty Gear, I like the characters in Guilty Gear, and I have opinions. Vime boom, because, opinions are stinky. All the time, 100% of the time. Oh, hey, you can see my Steam notifications. I will edit that out, probably. But yeah, I mean, let's just hop right into it. So, well, kind of, before I start placing things and yapping about these here characters, I'll go over my tiers and what they are. So, for starters, up here in S, we've got our favorites. That's where my favorites are gonna go. That is going to be almost exclusively for characters I both have experience playing with in the games and characters whose stories I really, really enjoy. Spoiler alert, there's some overlap in between the characters I have experience with and characters whose stories I really like. The characters make me want to play them, not the tier list or whatever. Tier list in this case meaning how good they are in the game. Then A will be for love. These are characters that have just fantastic stories, but aren't quite my favorites. This tier will be reserved for a lot of the more like well-written characters, but maybe I'm not super enthralled with their gameplay, or maybe there's just one aspect about their character I'm not really a huge fan of. Then, in the B tier, that is our like category, those are for the characters that I do enjoy. Or wait, hold on. My C tier's messed up. I just realized that. I'll fix it when we get there. But the B tier is my like tier, and that's just for the characters that I like, but there's not really anything beyond that, you know? I don't hate them. I don't even feel neutral towards them, but I don't, love them, you know? They're the characters who, if they get in the roster for Guilty Gear Strive 2, Electric Boogaloo, I'm definitely not upset, but it's also you know. And then C, and then the C tier is the neutral tier. That is for the characters who I don't really feel anything for, one way or the other. Then the D tier is for the dislike tier. That is for the characters who maybe have a couple of problems story-wise that I don't really... That makes them kind of fall down on the tier list. And then F is for characters that I hate. Spoiler alert, F tier will be populated by 2 characters and 2 characters only. Take your bets now. Put that money in the bag and figure it out. Who is it gonna be? I don't know. I won't spoil that much. And then finally, these 2 tiers down here, these are probably the least self-explanatory. The doesn't do enough to rate tier are for the background characters who I feel like don't really have enough going on for me to justifiably put them anywhere on the tier list. As you can see, if I scroll down, there's some characters like all the jellyfish pirates, Oshawott, whose real name I forgot, but he's an otter, so I'm going to call him Oshawott. Shamaki, Testament Succubi, this person who I've also entirely forgot. The Conclave outside of Cronus. Characters like that who just don't really have... I don't really have a whole lot to say on. Will go in the doesn't do enough to rate tier. And then finally, the Unica tier. Where is Unica? Where did she go? Is Unica gone? Is Unica dead? What happened to her? Is she with the playable characters? Okay, Unica, okay. That's weird. I lost Unica for a second. She's with the playable characters. The Unica tier is exclusively for Unica because as of right now, when I am recording this, let me check the date, or I can just check it on my computer, is 3/27/2025, or if you're from the European side of the world, 27/3/2025. The Guilty Gear Strive Dual Rulers anime has yet to release, as well as the Unica. The Unica. Unica herself has yet to become playable in Guilty Gear Strive. So I really have no impressions of her outside of the trailers. So honestly, I'm just going to throw her there now, since I'm yapping about it right now. I have no impressions of who she is or what her deal is outside of the trailers. She hates Gears, but I have a feeling it's Guilty Gear. She's probably going to come around by the end of the anime, right? So, I don't know what she's about yet, but I don't want to put her in the doesn't do enough to rate, kind of to future-proof this. So she gets to go in the Unica tier all by herself. So who knows? Maybe the Unica tier can become a favorites, or maybe it'll go into hate. Who knows? Who knows? Also, this is not the exact order I'll be going in. There will be some characters that I want to do together. And there is one character whose name starts with a B and ends with a Ridget, who I will be doing last for maximum viewer retention. Because I love viewer retention. That was a horrible voice crack. I'm going to redo that. Because I love viewer retention. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. And starting off with Soul Bad Guy. Soul Bad Guy, right away, he gets to go into the like category. Soul is a good character, for sure. I like his arc throughout the series of kind of coming out of his shell, you know? That's kind of his main arc of learning that he does have a place in the world. It is pretty endearing, because, you know, Soul's whole thing at the beginning of the series is that he views himself as a monster because he is a gear, and his entire motivation, his entire reason for existence is to kill Asuka and destroy all gears. And then throughout the series, different events kind of break down that viewpoint and kind of turn him into more of a mellow character who, while he's definitely still rough around the edges, has found his place in the world and what he wants to live for. Characters like Dizzy, Sin, Ramlethal, Elfelt, Jacko, they all kind of helped him regain his humanity in a sort of way and realize that while, yeah, he can't go back to the way things were, he can still go forward, you know, one step at a time and still engage as a part of the world. So I think Soul sits in a solid like. When it comes to fighting games, I've never really loved any of the main characters. I feel like kind of the inherent flaw of fighting games is that you have a whole cast of playable characters who are all really, really cool and really, really awesome. And then somehow the basic bitch is always the main character. And I'm talking about, like, playstyle rather than, like, personality here. But Ryu, Liu Kang, the Mishimas, they all kind of take up the spotlight in their respective series, and it's like, well, I kind of want to talk about the other guys, you know? Like, what has been going on with Dudley? I want to know what's happening with Dudley right about now. Or what's going on with, I don't know, random Mortal Kombat character here. Ferritor. I don't know. What's going on with Ermac? What's happening with Ermac? Why do we have to talk about Liu Kang right now? Or what's happening with, another random Tekken character, Yoshimitsu? Which Tekken definitely suffers from this, like, main character syndrome the most. The Mishimas have just been... it's just been overdone. The story of Tekken literally has not progressed since Tekken 4. And that game came out probably about 10 years or about 20 years ago now. Like, it's insane. So Soul definitely doesn't suffer from main character syndrome quite as much. I think Guilty Gear does a good job of balancing out its entire cast fairly well. It's not perfect, but I mean, there's no way to really be perfect when it comes to that type of stuff. So, next up, we have Kai Kiske. Now, Kai Kiske is definitely going in love. And I think a big part of that is because Kai isn't the main character. You know, Kai definitely reeks of like main character syndrome type of guy, where like if he was the main character, he would just be insufferable. But because he's not, he's able to like take his licks and kind of grow and change as a person and just become this really interesting character of like he is being forced as the series progresses more and more to admit that he was wrong about Gears, you know? Soul, obviously somebody he respects and maybe wouldn't call a friend, but would call a rival, is a Gear. And his wife, Dizzy, is a Gear, and his son, Sin, is a Gear. So he kind of had to grow and realize that there's a lot of shades of gray in the world. It's not all black and white. And I really love that. And I think and I like how he's a very humble character, but he's also still, at least as of Strive, set in his motivations and in his, what's the word I'm looking for? In his whatever. He's just very set in his motivation that he is doing the right thing. He strives to do the right thing no matter what. And when he feels he is doing the right thing, he's very certain of himself. And I think no scene better exemplifies that than the scene in the Strive story mode where Kai is going to face Ascended Eno. You know, we literally just watched every other character in the story mode shed a tear because they could not comprehend Eno at this level. And Kai just goes to fight her. Like, even Blind Man Zato shed a tear. And Kai goes and fights her. Like, he's just that guy. So, you know, I gotta give respect. I gotta give respect for that. Now, May. May is definitely gonna be my first kind of controversial opinion here, because May is definitely gonna go in dislike. Now, why is May in dislike? Well, for starters, I will give her... I'll give her plaudits where they're due. She is a very charming character. She's fun. She's bubbly. I like how in... I don't know. God, words are so hard. I like how in Exerd she runs away from the jellyfish pirates in an attempt to like protect them because she was worried she would get them sick. I think that like this shows a lot about her character and the type of person she is, and I like that. I like that type of storytelling. However, what's going to bring May down to the dislike tier is the complete non-progression in every other aspects of her character. Ever since the first game, her entire motivation has been she's in love with Johnny, who is her father figure, by the way, and she's just in love with Johnny. And it's like, clearly this is a plot that's never going to go anywhere, because it's such a central aspect of May's character that it's probably not going to get changed. I mean, if any game was going to change it, it would be Strive, and Strive didn't change it, so I guess it's just never going to change. And it's also never going to get any resolution either, because it's been made pretty clear Johnny doesn't think of her that way because she is his surrogate daughter. Which, again, a little weird. Arxis, you got something you want to say here? Like, what's going on? But other than that major issue, I really don't mind May. But it is a major enough issue to put her in dislike, in my opinion. Now for Milia. And really this... Remember when I said I'm going to have to talk about some characters together? This is the part where it's going to do it, because I have to talk about the Assassin's Guild as a whole. So I'm just going to move Venom and Slayer over here with Zato and Milia. For starters, I think the Assassin's Guild was handled very poorly throughout the series. Mainly in Exard. The main culprit of this is Exard. And I definitely feel like the two biggest victims of this mishandling were Zato and Venom, but Milia and Slayer did not escape unscathed. And what I mean by this is in Exard, they're all just kind of palling around and acting like... They're not acting like friendly or buddy-buddy, but like... Milia left them. The last we saw of her, she was... Venom was still trying to kill her. Eddie was still trying to kill her. She was fighting for her life, and then Slayer was just doing nothing in classic Slayer fashion. So I don't know why she was hanging out with... I don't know why she was hanging out with Venom in Exard, but I definitely don't know why she stuck around when Zato came back, the man who groomed her and abused her. Like, that's crazy work, that she just hangs out with them. It's just weird. I don't understand, like, why she was paired up with the Assassin's Guild, apart from the fact that she didn't really have anybody else to get paired up with, because her entire story is, like, circling around Zato constantly. Which is kind of funny in a weird, ironic sort of sense, since her entire story is, you know, breaking free from Zato, despite her still circling around Zato for 25 years. So, I don't know. Still, I do like certain aspects of her. I like how she's kind of naive and childlike in a weird way, while also remaining this kind of refined, elegant, womanly figure in the series. I like that kind of dynamic in her personality. So she's gonna go in neutral. And next up is Zato. Zato 1. Zato is honestly gonna go in hate. I do not care for Zato at all. So I lied, actually. There's 3 characters that will be going in hate, because initially I don't think I was thinking Zato was gonna go there. But it's just like, I just don't understand what they have been doing with Zato post-Exard. I just don't get it. Because since I'm sure many Guilty Gear fans did not play Guilty Gear pre-Exard, or at the very least did not pay a lot of attention to the story, he was like a straight up villain. Like, not only did he straight up groom Milia and Venom, like, he is a groomer. He tried multiple times, he tried to murder Milia even before Eddie took over his body. He was trying to kill her. And then he just gets a free pass once he comes back in Exard. Which you could say, oh, he didn't get a free pass because he literally died. But him dying didn't feel like a real punishment, because he was never truly gone, you know? We never saw the real, like, we don't see the real effects from that. Apart from that, now instead of being extremely emotional and kind of moody all the time, he doesn't feel anything except when he's with Milia. which again, it doesn't feel like a real punishment for being like one of the biggest villains in the series, you know? Like outside of the literal genocidal guys, Zato is probably the biggest villain. And the not dying thing just doesn't feel like, or the dying thing just didn't feel like enough of a punishment. Because he just gets to come back. And in the Guilty Gear world, we don't, as humans, we don't have any concept of what death is like, really. So it's kind of up to the writers of Guilty Gear to like describe how death works in Guilty Gear. How painful is it to have made Zato turn over a new leaf and then get to deserve his redemption? And I don't think they do a good enough job of that. Like, he still just feels unpunished. Leo literally says in Strive, if they had laws to punish the dead, Zato would be in jail. So, like, his death is more of a benefit to him than anything. Because now he's not controlled by Eddie. Now he has full control over Eddie, which was what killed him in the first place. And his slate just gets to be wiped clean. And he also just gets to pal around with Milia again, despite, abusing her and grooming her and being a horrible person. So I just can't get behind Zato. I just don't understand what they are cooking with Zato at all. Now, Venom was going to be in dislike, more than likely. But then his stuff in Strive came out, and his Strive story at least kind of endeared me to him. Even if a little more, even if I don't really care for how he was handled in Xrd. Again, I kind of go over this with Milia, but like, why is Venom palling around with Milia? He hates her. By all accounts, right then, he should still hate her because he still blames her for Zato's death and for Zato's imprisonment as well. So, I don't know. But I do like Venom's current story of finally getting to break away from the Assassin's Guild and kind of start his own life, not being groomed by a maniac like Zato. So good for him. Venom gets to go into neutral with Milia. Good job, Venom. He goes slightly below Milia, though, because I feel like Milia has had a stronger story for longer than Venom. Venom was kind of just a Zato fanboy up until Strive. Now, Slayer. Slayer, in some ways, is the least affected by the Assassin's Guild wackiness, and in other ways, the most affected by the Assassin's Guild wackiness. For one, because he was not a part of the guild prior to any of the games, including his debut, he kind of doesn't have anything stupid going on story-wise with the guild. Except in Xrd, where, like, suddenly he's saying, oh, his life, like, his way of life is on the line if the assassins don't help defeat Bedman. It's like, what do you mean, dog? You literally have not been involved in the guild for a long-ass time. Even if you were involved with the guild, they are not going to punish you. You are literally one of the strongest characters in the series. Like, what's happening? Why do you care? And you can say, oh, it's because he cares about Milia and Venom and Zato. But if he cared about them, why did he let Zato become a maniac and groom Milia and Venom? What is happening here? And also, it brings up the point of, like, well, Slayer, his whole thing is dandyism, but he left the guild in Zato's hand. And even though Zato, like, in Strive and stuff, is proclaiming, like, the values of dandyism and all that, it's like, you weren't like this in the old games, which is your true personality, technically. Like how he was in the older games is his true self. How he is now is technically not his true self because all of his emotions were stripped away. So I don't know. But again, Slayer's just too charming of a character to really dislike or even feel neutrally on. Even whenever he's on screen, I'm having fun. So, like, I can't hate him. I can't bring myself to even put him in neutral. I do like him, but again, all the stuff with the Assassin's Guild is just so messy, and it's just a shame that that's kind of the way it is. So I'm gonna put him in like below Soul. I think that's a fair spot for him. Now Potemkin. Oh hey Cece. So now Potemkin. Potemkin kind of falls into like the trap with May, where and I don't dislike him like personality wise or technically story wise. It's the problem that his story hasn't really progressed since the first game. Because in the first game he was a slave. Who the SMS? Who are the SMS? The theater kids? Oh, the stage. Okay. Well, I hope at least one of them likes Guilty Gear because otherwise they're not gonna get much out of this. So where was I? Potemkin, right. So Potemkin falls into the trap with May, where he's good, he's fun personality wise, and he has a good story technically. But the problem is his story has never progressed past the first game. In the first game, he was a slave, but then he got freed and led a revolution, and now Zep is a really cool place. But he's kind of like on the fence still, because he's like, oh, society can be bad still, and I'm scared that what I did may not have been the right thing. And that's been his plot for like 4 games now, 5 games. And I don't know. It's just a shame that it feels like he just has no progression as a character whatsoever. And it's crazy that his like partner character, as it were, Gabriel, who has never been playable in a Guilty Gear game ever, has more plot relevance than Potemkin does on average. So I'm gonna put Potemkin over May. Potemkin doesn't have a weird like father complex going on, so he's better than May, but at least he doesn't quite make it into neutral just because of his problems. So now Chip Zanoff. And Chip is a character I really, really like. I really, really like Chip. His story, again, kind of like Kai's, is just very, very endearing. You know, he's a ninja who was a drug addict, but being a ninja made him not a drug addict. That's cool. But then it keeps progressing into like, oh, he wants to help more people, so he gets into politics. And then he takes over an African country and makes it better, which sounds insane when I'm saying it out loud, but it actually is very endearing to the character and makes me enjoy Chip's story a lot. So I'm going to throw him up in love, just below Kai. Again, Chip is one of those characters who's just very hard to hate. He has a very infectious energy. So I love Chip, for sure. Now Faust. Where is Dr. Baldhead? Is Dr. Baldhead on here, or was he doctored in with Faust? There he is. Okay. So, spoiler alert for a game that came out like 25 years ago. Dr. Baldhead and Faust are the same person. They are the same person. So, it's hard to rate them separately because Dr. Baldhead is integral to Faust as a character, but Dr. Baldhead kind of sucks as a character. And then Faust is great as a character, but part of the reason he's great is because of Dr. Baldhead. So I'm going to kind of rank them separately, kind of not. With Baldhead, I would say I dislike him because I can only really judge him based on his one appearance in the series as not being Faust. And in that one appearance, he's kind of just a generic serial killer who doesn't really have much in the way of personality besides, oh, he's so crazy. And then he has the hook at the end where he's like, he regains his sanity and he disappears forever. And then a suspicious guy who looks exactly like him but has a paper bag over his head appears. And that's Faust. And Faust is one of my favorite characters, for sure. He's super endearing. I love how, even though he had that dark phase of his life that he's constantly trying to atone for, he doesn't just like give up and stop and just break down. He still is trying to help people as a doctor because that was his motivation before going insane. And now he's constantly trying to atone for his mistakes. And even in Strive, when he like sacrifices, it's not exactly clear what he sacrificed. It kind of looked like his soul. So that's what I'm going to go with, where he sacrifices his soul to help save Delilah. Even after that, he's still just like out on the streets giving people like free surgeries or whatever Faust does because he's just a good guy. So I love Faust. I think he's awesome. If you want to learn more about Faust, there is an awesome video by Toxic Pyro called Faust is Peak Fiction or something along those lines. Please watch it if you want to learn more about Faust. It's a great video. It's part of what got me into the series. It's just great. And it reflects, it's mostly just telling Faust's story in video form. But his Toxic Pyro's interspersed opinions kind of reflect my own. So now, Axel Lowe. What about Axel Lowe? Again, Axel, kind of similar to Soul, suffers a little bit from the main character syndrome, where it's like, man, I don't care about you. I want to see what's happening with, ABBA. But Axel's kind of like Soul. Axel has a strong enough story to kind of support the main character syndrome, to where he's a man who got catapulted hundreds of years into the future into a world he knows nothing about, and his only plot was that he was trying to get back home. But then finally he meets up with Eno, and he learns that, hey, if I go back in time, all of these people that I've met over my journey here will cease to exist. So Axel, because at the end of the day, he's just a good guy, first and foremost, he decides to make the sacrifice of technically his own life, because now he doesn't get to like live his life in the past for the sake of all the people he's met throughout his time in the future, which I think is a really endearing character trait. And just makes me like him. So that is where he's going to go. He's going to go up in the like tier. Now, Cliff Anderson. Cliff is a weird character because Cliff has spent a majority of the series dead. He died during the events of the first game and has never been resurrected. So it's kind of difficult to judge him because he's, rather than being like a character who goes through this growth and arc and whatnot, his character is kind of more of this looming shadow who influences other characters' actions and how he was, what am I trying to say? And his influence on other characters kind of is felt more than he is, basically. And I really like that. I think that is a fun way to do a character. I'm honestly shocked they didn't bring him back to life in XX, just because like he was on the roster. That game had a lot of time travel stuff. I'm kind of shocked that Eno didn't just like bring Cliff from the past and he was like, oh hey, I'm gonna stay here in the future so that everybody can play me in future games. Didn't happen, and he's never returned since. But I really do enjoy that. I really do enjoy his effect on other characters, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Specifically on Testament and Soul and Kai, he has a very interesting effect on all of them as being kind of the guy who mentored them all and taught them their like core values in fighting and in their morality, I guess. So I'm definitely going to throw him, I think I'm going to throw him just below Slayer in like tier. I think that's a good spot for him. Now, Testament. Testament's definitely a weird one. For sure. Trying to think of how I want to approach this. For starters, I think their plot early in the series of lamenting being mind controlled by justice and being forced to commit atrocities while still being kind of at odds with their genuine feelings of abandonment by the rest of the world, because at this point the world was still racist against all the gears, is interesting, as well as being Dizzy's protector and kind of raising her in the same way Cliff raised them to, I guess, be more accepting of others. And Testament is part of the reason that Dizzy isn't like Justice. So, good for them, I guess. I think ultimately Testament's going to go in... Oh, do people see that? No, I don't want to... I hate this app. Go away. I think ultimately Testament's going to go just above Slayer in like... I don't really have a lot to say about Testament, but again, Testament's a very solid character. I think a lot of characters that I don't have a lot to say about are probably going to end up somewhere in the like category, just because a lot of the characters in these games are just very charming, at the very least. So then Justice. Justice, again, is a very interesting character as the first, like, big bad of the series. The first, like, major antagonist. And kind of the tipping point for the entire plot, really, as the character who nuked Japan and then started a global war against humans. You know, that was kind of a big deal. For obvious reasons. And while Justice, again, kind of like Cliff, has never had the chance to really grow because she died in the first game. Again, much like Cliff, her effect is felt throughout the rest of the series. And it's very interesting how multiple characters were affected by Justice. So, and I'm also a sucker for just a good villain. So I think Justice gets to go up in love. It's also just really cool getting to fight as this giant Gundam. So, and finally, the last character playable in the first game, Baiken. Baiken is definitely another favorite of mine, for sure. She may not be as favorite as Faust, but she has a very endearing story of just learning not to want to murder Asuka, I guess. Because her whole story is focused on vengeance, right? Her entire plot was just seeking vengeance for her country. Which, fair enough. Her country was wiped off the map. But it was kind of a self-destroying type of vengeance. She was going forward with this vengeance, with this plan for revenge, at the cost of her own life, which kind of goes against the core values of Guilty Gear in that you shouldn't be looking to the past, you should be looking to the future. So then her interactions, both with Anji and mainly with Delilah in Guilty Gear Strive, kind of changes her point of view in that she should be looking towards the future, that yes, what happened was bad and was horrible, but vengeance doesn't have to be... The best vengeance isn't killing somebody, it's living past what happened to you, it's surviving. And I just think that's a very interesting dynamic for Baiken. I really like Baiken. Again, and, she's another character that I played for a while. Not as much as Faust, but for a decent amount of time. Anyways, that is all of the first game's roster done. I've been going for close to an hour now, and my throat is dry, so I am going to hit the BRB button and go get a drink. I'll be right back. Alright, we're back in it. Swear, it's rough yapping this much. Rough on the vocal cords. So next off is Anji Mito, and Anji's another one that's just... Anji's gonna end up in the top of neutral. He's just kind of there for me, is the thing. He's certainly not a poorly written character, but he's always kind of felt like just a Biken satellite character. And I know he's got his own stuff going on with trying to find that man and like trying to figure out why Japan was really destroyed and all this other stuff. But I don't know, he just out of all the characters in the series, he's the one that is just like the most there of all time, you know? He doesn't do anything for me either way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So now, Johnny. I talked a little bit about Johnny with May, but not a whole lot, and most of the things with Johnny are grievances with May, so I don't even need to touch on it. I really like Johnny. He's just a cool guy, but he's also, you know, the guy with a heart of gold who helps out poor, unfortunate souls, and invites them to be pirates with him. And that's just cool. Johnny's just cool. What can I say? And then Jam. Jam is another one, kind of like Anji. Man, Guilty Gear X just didn't have a lot of bangers, did it? Kind of like Johnny, she's just kind of, or not like Johnny, kind of like Anji, she's just kind of there. You know, she's another bounty hunter who wants to open a restaurant because for some reason, I guess. I mean, it's not really for some reason. She just wants to open a restaurant. But, like, I don't know. She's somehow, like, one of the strongest key users in the series. And that's it, kind of? I don't know. I don't really get Jam, is what I'm saying, I guess. Kind of like Anji, she's just kind of there. I would say she's slightly worse than Anji, because at least Anji has, like, plot and stuff. Jam's plot is she has restaurant, and she's kind of attracted to Kai, I guess. Her restaurant gets destroyed occasionally. She's Chinese. I don't know. So next off is Dizzy, or Queen Dizzy as she's known in Strive, because she's a queen now. I think Dizzy's a solid like tier, probably just below Axel. I really love how like she has this like constant underlying theme of trying to like not be her mother, who is Justice, by the way, for like the three people who don't know. But it's not like a central focus of her character. I also think her like love story with Kai is really cute. And that's about it. That's all there really is to it with Dizzy, I guess. She's pretty solid. Pretty solid character. And I'm going to go Necro and Undyne right now, just because I'm here. Necro and Undyne are basically the same character as Dizzy. Necro is kind of funny because he's like the protector guy, and Undyne is a lot less interesting because she basically is just Dizzy, but one of her wings. So, I don't know. Realistically, they probably should be in like either neutral or doesn't do enough to rate, but I'm just going to put them on either side of Dizzy because that's funny. And then viewer retention character can go down here. So Zappa. I really like Zappa. I mean, of course, I'm a sucker for like horror tropes, horror media. So it's cool that he's just kind of this possessed guy. It's interesting that I really hope ghosts get existed. I hope that ghosts get explored a little more in the future, because we've kind of explored what vampires are, but not ghosts. And the fact that they exist is interesting to me. But I like it. I like that he's kind of the ghost that is possessing him is just kind of Sadako from The Ring. I just think that's kind of funny. And otherwise, he's just a pretty solid character. I liked him in Exerd, though I wish that he did a little more besides being just the guy in the chair. Especially when Leo was already the guy in the chair, and so was Paradigm. There were like 3 guys in chairs, and Zappa was like the least interesting of them. But in Plus R, well, not just in Plus R, in XX, he's a really fun character, and I definitely would not hate seeing his story expanded in Strive. So I'm going to throw him below Cliff. I think that's a good place for him. Ino is an automatic love. I love Ino. She is such a fantastic villain. Like, if Justice was able to lay the groundwork of what a good Guilty Gear villain can be, Ino absolutely perfected it. She is all in at one time a very tragic character, yet also extremely like villainous and malicious in her actions. Like, she's not forgivable, and she's not just doing it because she can, you know? She just works as a great villain. And of course, her ascension to godhood in Strive is one of the best moments in the series. So I gotta give her props for that. And Robokai, my beloved, is in favorites. Robokai is the greatest way to do a joke character in any video game ever. Because he's just a complete joke, but he's also really fun to play and not like a bad character, you know? I love Robokai. He's a complete and utter maniac. He's insane, and I love him for it. And then Abba. If you've watched any of my past streams, I think you know where Abba's gonna go. Abba is my favorite Guilty Gear character. She's my main. She's everything I want in a character. She's just perfect. Absolutely perfect in every way, shape, and form. I'm a sucker for a good love story. She has that in spades. I love how the plot in Strive was both Abba and Paracelsus admitting their flaws and striving to become better and not abusive, kind of. Because I feel like it's definitely easy to overlook Paracelsus as doing wrong stuff. But I guess I'll talk about Paracelsus now too. Paracelsus also gets to go up here with her. I think it's kind of easy to overlook Paracelsus as being just the victim in this relationship, whereas like Paracelsus is just as much of an abuser as Abba, if not more so. He manipulated her into like picking him up in the first place. He was actively like kind of stoking her bloodlust just because of his bloodlust in the previous games. But now they've both kind of come to a realization that Abba's jealousy is causing Paracelsus to like melt and lose his form, while Paracelsus's manipulations is like causing Abba to become crazier and crazier. So they're both kind of mellowing out, and I like that. I think that's cool. And then Order Soul. Order Soul's a solid like neutral. Order Soul's kind of like what happens when you take Soul and remove all of his character development. You know, I mean, I do understand why people are clamoring for him to come back. It's because he was probably their main in one of the older games. But like from a plot standpoint, I don't really understand the obsession with Order Soul, because like again, he's just kind of Soul without the character development. So, Sin Kisk. Sin's another love. I really like Sin. Even if he is a bastard to play against in Strive, he is absolutely a very charming character. And, you know, his relationship with Kai is really good. I love... I'm stumbling over my words. I need a second. I love how he doesn't like immediately forgive Kai for everything once he's got an explanation, but he also doesn't like continue to be edgy and hold it over his head, you know? And I just like, you know, I like his carefree nature. I think he's just a fun character to have around in pretty much any scenario. And of course, Get Over Nightmares is a banger song. So now, Raven. Raven is gonna be another love. I do really like Raven. I like how he's kind of portrayed initially as just kind of Asuka's yes man who does everything he says, but then he kind of gets more depth as like this guy who's kind of a bad guy who Asuka is like kind of to help has helped to kind of reform. Words are just hard for me today, holy moly. And kind of realize his place in the world. Because, you know, Raven, as an immortal being, kind of has watched everybody he knows and loves die multiple times already. But Asuka's kind of been able to reignite his desire to live again as somebody who's a storyteller, as somebody who is able to see everything happen and be able to understand it, I guess. And I really like that. I really like that mini arc he had in Exerd. He didn't have much else going on in the other games, but I don't think he really needed to. Then Bedman. Bedman's a character I'm kind of just whatever on. It's probably like better than Venom, I guess. That's probably the wrong opinion according to some bed stands, but Bedman, he just in Exerd he's just kind of like a generic villain guy who occasionally spouts off some stuff like, my absolute world, I'm doing this for the greater good. It's like, I don't care, bro. Just put the villainy in the bag, little bro. And he just... It's crazy that Bedman... Because this tier list separates Bedman and Strive Bedman, I can only really take into account the stuff from Exerd, and it's crazy that Bedman's ghost probably possessing his stupid bed frame is going to rank higher than him because that's where a majority of his plot is. So, Ramlethal. Does Ramlethal go in love or does she go in favorites? I think she goes in the top of love. I think Ramlethal, again, has one of the best arcs in the series, which is crazy considering she's only been in 2 games. But she has probably one of, if not the best arcs in the series, where she's like learning what it means to be human and kind of breaking away from being just a mindless instrument of the universal will's conquest, you know? She, while at the same time, the writers haven't just instantly made her like, oh, I understand everything now, kind of, except I'm kind of naive about some stuff. No, she like, every time she shows up to have dialogue, with characters about stuff in Strive, she has like very deep and meaningful conversations with them. Like just recently with Venom, she had some very interesting conversations with Venom, which if you haven't, please go check out the all of Venom's arcade route interactions in Strive. They're pretty good, pretty solid. Now Elfelt, I think Elfelt's gonna also end up in neutral, kinda, because no, I think Elfelt does enough to get to like probably above Zappa, but below Cliff. Elfelt, I think she just struggles because like she was so involved in the story of Exerd, and then she wasn't in Strive for 2.5 seasons. And then when she gets into Strive, her character is just a complete 180 from how it was in Exerd. Well, it's not a 180, but it's a different direction than I feel like most people thought she was gonna go. Cause yeah, she's still the marriage obsessed lunatic she was in Exerd, but now she's a death metal singer? And the death metal stuff hasn't quite been justified for me yet. You know? So far, it just has kind of felt like something they've slapped onto the character for just, to add some extra personality to her. And while I do enjoy the aesthetics and have fun with her screaming into the microphone after she wins, it hasn't the new angle hasn't quite been justified for me yet. So hopefully the Dual Rulers anime does something to justify that for me, but right now Elfelt's just in like. Then Leo Whitefang, I think he gets to go above Slayer. Again, he's kind of a simple guy to understand. He's treated more as a joke character, but he's also got like the deep underlying factor of his PTSD and his survivor's guilt. Really, that's most of what there is to him. So I think he definitely gets to have a solid like tier, That is where Leo should go, in my opinion. Then Jacko. This may end up being a hot take, but I think Jacko gets to go into the top of neutral. I'm thinking about Jacko, I really am, and I can't think of much that she really does for me, Cause she's a fun character to have around, but at the same time, it's like, so far she's kind of just been a sole bad guy satellite character, and that's kind of whatever. I definitely hope that in Dual Rulers or in maybe the next Guilty Gear game, she kind of breaks away and has her own plot. But as for now, she's definitely a charming character, and I like the moment in Strive Story Mode where she's like willing to sacrifice herself, and then Soul goes, "No, I like you for you and not for Arya. You should not sacrifice yourself." And then she's like, "Okay, cool." But that's more on the part of Soul than Jacko, so Jacko gets to stay in neutral. Then Haehyun. Haehyun gets to... These guys are gonna... Haehyun and Ass are both gonna be kind of low. Haehyun's probably gonna go right about here. Right about here. Right about here. That's Haehyun. She doesn't do a whole lot in Exerd, besides, like, she protects the colony. There's not a whole lot to her. I wish the mech was more obviously a mech, because in gameplay you don't even get to like see the real Haehyun. You just see this old man who's like really generic looking. So yeah, she gets to hang out in neutral. And then Answer gets to go into the top of dislike. Answer's definitely should be in neutral, but he was the last character in Exerd. And having him be the last character in Exerd over Robokai or Gabriel or Ariel's kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Like, we could have had so much better than just Chip's random secretary guy. Now, Nagori Yuki. I think Nagori Yuki can go... I'd say probably above Testament. I think Nagori Yuki's story of like trying to break free from chaos is definitely a good plot so far. I hope they do more with him in whatever his next appearance is, because so far he's just kind of been like the unwilling henchman to chaos. But there is so much potential with him to expand on, in my opinion. Giovanna is just kind of... Giovanna and Gold Lewis are both just kind of neutral. They'll probably be next to each other. Think about Jam. Yeah. I like Gold Lewis slightly more, but it's not really by much. I think they're just kind of like the generic Secret Service Army guys, and that's it. Yippee, I'm glad we have more America representation, I guess. Yippee, who cares? Then Happy Chaos. Happy Chaos is gonna go above Justice in Love. I really like Happy Chaos. I like how he's a villain who technically has no villainous intentions. You know, his goal is always for like humanity to overcome struggles. So like he creates the struggles, which I think is an interesting concept for a villain. Again, he just kind of suffers because like he was only in one game. Even if he was the main focus of that game, he was only in the one. So I think he just kind of doesn't get to go much higher because of that. But he really was... He had a fantastic debut, for sure. Then Strive Bedman. Strive Bedman's in love. I love Strive Bedman. I love how Strive Bedman kind of recontextualizes all of Bedman's decisions in Exerd. I love how like it makes it so that it makes Bedman into this much more tragic figure of like, even in death, he's willing to do anything to protect his sister, and I think that's pretty cool. A pretty interesting plot. Need another drink. And then Delilah, Bedman's partner character, I think she just manages to squeak past Sin. Again, kind of like what I said with Strive Bedman. She recontextualizes a lot of Bedman's decisions in the previous game in a very interesting manner, and I like that a lot. Then is Asuka. And Asuka, I'm going to put into the top of hate. I don't actually hate Asuka from a story standpoint at all, really. I think Asuka is a fantastic character from a story standpoint. Probably like top 5 in the series. But man, I am an ABBA main and I hate playing against Asukas. So there he goes. Now, let's see here. Quickly throw in whichever characters I don't think do enough to rate in the doesn't do enough to rate section. The Jellyfish Pirates don't do enough to rate. Really? I don't think April even does enough to rate, so I'll throw her there too. Oshawott doesn't really do enough to rate. Zog doesn't. Succubi doesn't. Chimaki doesn't. Sharon doesn't for Maximum Slander. I don't know who that person is. These guys don't. She doesn't really. These guys definitely don't. She doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't. I know they technically do stuff, but it's not enough to rate. He doesn't. I'm going to keep that there because it's true. She doesn't. But it is true. We'll talk about it later. Maybe Bridget will come before Lucy. Yeah, Lucy will be my true maximum viewer retention character. So Fanny. Fanny is an incredibly obscure character featuring in only 2 games, Guilty Gear Petite and Guilty Gear Petite 2. She is somebody who was saved by Dr. Baldhead prior to going insane. And now she has dedicated her life to medicine because of him. Obviously, she has basically no story. But I think it would be really cool if she got in Strive, so into favorites she goes. I don't think I have to explain why Leopoldon is in favorites. He is one of the best to ever do it. End of story. Izuna. Izuna also gets into favorites. I love Izuna. He is just so funny in Guilty Gear 2. He's like, all of his lines make me chuckle at least a little bit. I hope he comes back and they give him like a proper story. Genuinely one of my favorite characters in the series. For no real reason, I just like him. I don't know that I like him for the Robokai though, if I'm being honest. Then Paradigm. I like Paradigm. He's pretty solid. I think I'm gonna put him... Yeah, I think below Slayer is what I'm feeling. I like how he is like a gear scholar who's like who's also like a gear civil rights activist. You know, he's like the Professor X of Gears, which is just cool. And I don't know, he was cool in Guilty Gear 2. Really all the characters in Guilty Gear 2 were just kind of cool. And then Valentine. Valentine is proto-Ramlethal in like kind of the worst ways possible, so she's gonna go bottom of neutral. Gabriel, I do really like Gabriel. I wish he would be playable, because he's literally more important to the plot than Potemkin. Probably there. Yeah. He's just cool. He's just a cool guy. Take what I said about Potemkin, pretty much, and then apply it to him. But then also add in a bit of, like, he actually does stuff. He, like, fended off Bedman and Exerd. And also, like, punched that one monster with Slayer. That was a pretty cool moment. Vernon's just... he's just cool. Strive kind of centered around Vernon in a kind of weird way. But Strive definitely turned him into a very endearing character, and Dual Rulers looks to be continuing that trend of just having Vernon be this kind of endearing guy, you know? Football's gonna save the world. So I'm gonna throw him up in like... probably below Zappa, I think is fair. Daryl is a neutral tier for sure. I don't know. Yeah, below Valentine. The most I have to say about Daryl is that, Guilty Gear Xrd After Story 3 is funny. That's all I have to say about Daryl. Maybe if he was playable, he would have more going on. Then Ariel's Xenolike. I think she's a little bit too insane for her own good, and not in the fun kind of way that Eno and Chaos are insane, but in kind of the stupid kind of way where she could beat the heroes at any point in the story, but she acts intentionally dumb because she's crazy. So she's gonna go below Vernon. Eddie is unironically so much better than Zato because they didn't butcher his character. He just has now been able to be controlled by Zato because Zato died. So he gets to go up in like above, no. All of the non-playable characters get to go below Zappa. Does Roger do enough to rate? I don't think Roger does enough to rate, if I'm being honest. I don't think Lucifero does either. I don't think Judgment... I'll talk about Judgment, I guess, if I can remember his plot. I think he's just kind of Justice, but again, right? He just kind of wants to kill everybody. So I'm going to put him in Dislike. Because, like, who cares? And then Crow's cool. I think Crow I think it'd be kind of weird if Crow came back, but he was a good one-off antagonist in XX. And definitely, like, teased the Conclave pretty well. So I'm gonna... I guess Zappa's just the hard lock for being a good character. Kronos I will put in love, though. I think Kronos is just a very interesting character in that, like, he was trying to, like, kind of do the right thing. I think... What was the plot of Exard Sign again? He wanted to reawaken justice so the Conclave could control the world so that they could stop the universal will. I think. I don't remember. But I like Cronus. I hope he becomes playable. And then Arya. Arya is another, like, post-mortem character where she died, like, before the series even started. And then became Justice. So, like, it's really hard to rank Arya because pretty much all of Arya is included in Jacko or Justice. So I guess I'll throw her up here in neutral next to Jacko since that's the one she's most like. But she gets to go below Jacko because Jacko's alive and Arya is dead. Being dead makes you lamer. Then Robokai 2, my beloved. He's not as good as the original, but he's still pretty good. Now, Bridget. Moment everybody's been waiting for. The most... Gotta stretch my pain away. The most divisive character in all of Guilty Gear is Bridget. So I'm gonna start by saying this. Bridget in XX is the worst character to ever exist in Guilty Gear history. She is the absolute worst in that game. Specifically in Guilty Gear XX. She is boring. Her plot sucks. It's dated. And it's just all around complete garbage. And then Strive had the chance to do something with her and change her up and, like, change it just a bit, like refocus the plot on something else. But instead they just course corrected and did the exact same plot XX did, but in the opposite direction. Hooray. To Strive's credit, it's a little bit better because at least it's not horribly outdated and at least it is a course correction. But it's also a retcon to her motivations in XX, and it kind of just sucks. Like, Bridget just all around kind of sucks. A very boring character, a very nothing character, whose plot is just completely... Bridget could be completely removed from the series and nothing of value would be lost whatsoever, except maybe Roger, but clearly Roger doesn't even do enough to rate, so whatever. Bridget can go bottom of dislike, because I don't hate her, but it's close. And then Lucy, I think really it's all summed up by what that text says, that this person who made this has kindly added. I will zoom in to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Eh. That right there. Read it and weep. What does it say? What is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? That's right. Lucy sucks. Worst character made. Now I have to fix this. Hold on. This is a pain. I wish I was able to keep my OBS tab a little bigger. Okay. So, yep. Lucy gets to go bottom of hate tier because I hate guest characters. Yippee! So, yeah. I kind of sped through that. It's kind of a bit of a speed round, especially, you know, past the original game. Really, during the original game, I kind of started a speed round. But yeah, that is the completed tier list. And, yeah. I don't know, maybe in the full video I'll add some commentary on some characters. Maybe I'll edit the commentary down on others. Who knows? Who knows? But this is my opinion, and this is what I'm sticking to. Read it and weep. Read it and weep. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be done for the night. Is there anything I gotta say? Not really. Subscribe to the main channel. That One Pyro Noob. It is on Twitch. Whenever, if you want to see the full video when it comes out, subscribe to the VOD channel to see the VOD, I guess. And follow the Instagram for schedules that will probably be wrong. I think that's all I have to say. So, yeah. Later, Gators.